In almost any gun store or forum, you can find someone who just can't wait to give you unsolicited information. A lot of the advice that overeager Jerry likes to share with you is stuff that has been repeated ad nauseum in gun circles, but it isn't always backed up by facts. For example, they might soberly warn you against choosing a modern sporting rifle or hand loads or NFA devices or other scary things for defense because an overzealous prosecutor will get you locked up. I swear they read this shit from a script. It's the sort of urban legend that sounds plausible on the surface, so people just accept and repeat it without any sort of critical thinking. No one has ever been locked up for using a scary but legal gun in a legal manner. And overpenetration is exactly that same kind of bullshit. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to tell you that bullets don't go through things. Obviously they do. What I am trying to say is that the risk isn't nearly what these pearl-clutching neckbeards breathlessly inform you it is. They'll even go so far as to recommend absolute garbage ammunition like No. 8 birdshot, Liberty Civil Defense, or .223 caliber varmint ammo, none of which meet minimum penetration requirements. To the best of my knowledge, there has never been a documented case where a homeowner shot a bad guy in justified self-defense and the bullet passed through the baddie and harmed an innocent person. There are many cases where police officers have had to shoot someone and the bullet passed through them and into an uninvolved party. And it has happened to armed citizens who have had to shoot out in public in a crowded area. But it hasn't happened in the context of home defense, like ever. I'm confident of this because I've been challenging viewers for years to produce an example and no one has managed to bring one to my attention. That's mostly because the world around us is largely composed of space that does not contain a human being. Even if bullets were infinite death beams that cut through everything they touched, there's a lot more space that doesn't contain human flesh than does. And that makes it very unlikely that a bullet fired in any direction will hurt someone. But bullets are not infinite laser lines. They actually stop pretty readily when they strike things, and I set up a little demonstration to illustrate this. If you knew your kid was standing right behind Cracking McCrackerson as he posed a threat inside your home, you would probably take a step to the side or take a knee or refrain from firing entirely until you had a clear shot. But what if you shot Mr. McCrackerson when a loved one was just on the other side of a wall? I set up a not quite worst case scenario where we have our bad guy ballistic block standing a few inches away from our wall mock-up, and our innocent but probably a little slow family member immediately on the other side of the wall. Now in our demonstration, Mr. McCrackerson is the skinniest little bastard ever to jimmy a window at only 6 inches thick. The skinniest guy I know measures 8 inches from sternum to spine. And in this demonstration, Mr. McCrackerson has no bones or skin and is only inches away from the wall, which contains no wiring, plumbing, insulation, or studs. And Susie Sleeps a Lot is likewise only inches from the wall. Include bones, use a larger crackhead, more distance, or allow a projectile to pass through harder parts of the wall, and the results would likely be very different. But I wanted to create a scenario that is as bad as it could plausibly be. We're going to fire .223 Remington 77 grain TMK from a 16-inch barrel, 9mm 124 grain HST from a 4.5-inch barrel, and 12 gauge double-aught buckshot from an 18-inch barrel, and then take a look at how much danger Susie Sleeps a Lot might be in. If you're inclined to make a bet, now is the time to pause the video and leave a comment below. All right, guys, this is no surprise. 77 grain TMK is frag nasty, blows stuff up real good. If this was a bad guy, he'd be super dead. Of course, he's also a really skinny bad guy at like 6.5 inches. The skinniest guy I know is about 8 inches thick through the chest. I had him stand up against the wall, measured from the wall to the front of his chest. It's about 8 inches. That said, through this, you can see where it hit the drywall here, and you can actually see a lot of these fragments. Here's a little piece of jacket right here stuck into the drywall. You can see, aside from the gore stuck to it, there's a piece of jacket material. And of course, the hole. All the dust along here, but that's where it impacted. Total penetration, 7.5 inches. Now, is that potentially fatal? Yes. Yeah, that could kill someone. However, when you account for more than just a few inches between this body and the wall and this body, you're going to see a lot more of that bullet slowing down. You're going to see a lot less penetration in the gel, and ultimately the severity of this wound really isn't that bad, because by the time it gets to this point, this bullet has slowed down a lot. It's not traveling anywhere near as fast, and what's left over here is actually a lot more like a 22 short, in that it's a small, relatively light, slow-moving bullet. Again, a bullet, not a Nerf dart. Again, yes, potentially fatal, but a lot less likely to be fatal than some other cartridges. Okie dokie. Obviously the bullet passed through this gel block here. That's fairly unremarkable. We've seen a lot of pistol wounds in gel, and we've seen a lot of pistol performance for jacketed hollow point and HST and all that. We know how that does. This is, just like that other guy, one of the skinniest bad guys ever at 6 inches. So half an inch less than the other gel block. Wind is giving me a seriously hard time today. There's impact on the drywall. Unfortunately, I had the camera aimed too far to the left so you couldn't see it, but we've seen before in some of these tests where the bullet comes all the way to the end of this track and then kind of bink, 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 bounces back and forth along the channel as it's collapsing. It's a pretty cool thing to see on high speed. I'll dig up some of those earlier shots from other tests so I can throw that over this footage, maybe up in here while we're talking about it. But the total penetration is here, not here. That figure is 7.1 inches. So a wider wound track and a deeper wound track than the 223. Let's see what happens with 12 gauge. Alrighty then, you can see the impact on the gel here. It's not what we're looking for. We don't care. We know that 12 gauge buckshot messes people up real good, and we've seen the effects in gel plenty before. Came out here, hit the drywall here, next to the 9mm shot here. And of course, lots of gypsum all over the place here, no surprise. Here's the innocent bystander on the other side of the wall. These tracks pass all the way through. Every one of them passes all the way through. Oh, I'm sorry, my mistake. There's one right here That probably skimmed along the bottom of the table. That still came to almost to the end of the block. The rest of them passed all the way through and out the backside of this 16-inch block. So 6 inches of bad guy, drywall, airspace, and 16 inches of block. Okay, were you surprised? Did any of these loads perform the way you thought they would? The first and most important takeaway is the fact that 4 rules of firearm safety apply all the time, even in a gunfight. Be sure of your target and what's behind it. Any ammunition has the potential to pass through your attacker and damage something you did not intend to hit. In our nearly worst case scenario, Susie could have been killed by any one of these loads. But out of the 3 loads tested here, the 223 had the least potential for injury. So much so that had the bad guy had bones inside of his body, the projectile might not have had enough mojo left to cause any serious injury. After the bad guy and the wall, the bullet only penetrated 7.5 inches. Bear in mind that the calibration BB for ballistic gel must penetrate between about 3 inches and 3 3/4 inches for the gel to be valid, and we don't normally consider BB guns to be particularly lethal. That doesn't mean 223 is harmless to bystanders and other loads will perform differently, but this does mean that the risk is severely reduced in comparison to many other cartridges. Finally, I want each of you to consider that a miss is obviously far more dangerous to bystanders than a bullet that passes through a bad guy first, because that hit ditches a great deal of energy early on. Lots of folks have demonstrated how any ammo that is suitable for defense will fly through many, many walls. And you will miss in a fight. If you think that you won't, that's only because you haven't trained enough. Take a defensive pistol class and shoot a 2-gun match. You'll find out real quick what I mean. If you choose ineffective ammunition out of a misguided attempt to reduce risk to bystanders, you risk having to shoot the bad guy more times. More shots fired means more misses, which paradoxically increases the potential for someone not involved to get hurt. Is it possible for projectiles to overpenetrate? Yeah, absolutely. Is it something to be overly concerned about? Not remotely. Choose ammunition that meets FBI requirements and train hard to put those pills in the right spot. A great place to find ammunition that meets those standards is Ventura Munitions. They provided the ammunition that I used in this test, and their gracious sponsorship makes these videos possible. I hope I gave you something to think about. If you disagree with any of the points that I made here, or if you have questions about the facts, leave a comment down below. The discussion is the best part of these videos, and you folks are the best commenters on YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, I'm sure you know that the subscribe doesn't really mean anything anymore, so if you want to see more videos like this, hit that bell. Please do what you can to support gun content on this platform by liking, sharing, and subscribing to all the gun channels, especially TFB TV. If you want to find out how you can make stunning high-speed videos like the ones you saw here, get in touch with Aimed Research. Their contact information is in the doobly-doo. Have a great day.